Hey YouTube, Awesome Rider here. This is going to be a Power Rangers Dino Fury video in lieu of our usual weekly episode review since we are on mid-season hiatus. I thought I would talk about everything it's been doing right so far before we get to the return, whether it's in the fall or in the potential inevitable international airing. So thus far, Dino Fury has surprised me. I thought honestly it was going to be more of the same, and it definitely is to a degree. There still is a lot of Neo Saban sameness within it, but it has, like I said, surprised me in a lot of ways, and I've really been enjoying it. Now, I just want to say it still fully has the potential to let me down in the future, because after all, I really quite enjoyed the first half of Beast Morphers. I even didn't mind the first half of Ninja Steel, so it still has the potential to let me down in the second half or the second season or both, but for now I'm just trying to enjoy while I'm enjoying it and looking forward to it each week. And even with those series I wound up not enjoying as much, I still can appreciate the things I did enjoy in the first half and the new things they brought. And there definitely is a handful of things Dino Fury has brought so far that I think will be worth noting, even if it lets us down. And before we get fully into it, I just want to remind you guys to like this video if you enjoyed it, and don't forget to subscribe and ring that bell so you can get notifications from my videos for more Power Rangers news, toy reviews, and more. Let's talk about it. So number one is something I have mentioned. I'm not numbering this list. I'm just saying number one because it's the first one, you know. Anyway, that's not important to clarify. But the first thing I want to mention is something I've mentioned in almost every episode review, which is the score. I have been completely surprised by the score and how much I enjoy it. Because as you guys know, that's something I've complained about for years if you watch the channel. Because ever since Samurai, we've been basically in purgatory with Gnome's score, which has been 90% just mmpr 2.0 redux, whether it's the Go-Go Power Rangers tune, or the fake Bulk and Skull music, or the fake Rita's Palace music, and then with only like 4 other tracks that are non-MMPR, but it was always the same ones. It's been basically the same score from Samurai through Beast Morphers with a couple little variations here and there. And I was pretty sure this year they were going to do the same thing, maybe even quadruple down on it, since it might be the last season in this line, and it's the Dino season, so it's even more incentive to do MMPR stuff. And then of course we got the theme song, which is another MMPR remix. And so before the show premiered, I'm like, okay, they're totally going to quadruple down on an MMPR score. And I was pleasantly surprised that not only do they not have an MMPR score, but it's a really cool score. Some people don't think it fits because it's kind of techno-y and not night themed, but given the theme song and the vibe of the show, I think it fits very well. And I appreciate that not only is it different, but it's memorable and likable. Like, I get pumped whenever the Morph Sequence tune comes on, and it's got some epic scores within it, like Void Knight's theme, and memorable beats that I'm actually looking forward to hearing. It reminds me of the Disney era when I knew or could see an action sequence or a finisher was coming, and I knew that they were going to play a certain song, and I get excited, and I'm getting that way again. So regardless if Dino Fury lets me down, the score is always going to be a huge positive. Next up is the great lore additions. You know, with the Morphin Masters, I think have been the most notable thing. No matter what happens, I think this was a really cool addition, because it's something that's kind of a little bit of a crossover from the comics, since they're using a design inspired by it, and they were only ever mentioned in the show once, but right from the get-go, it was a huge surprise to learn that they were directly involved with Dino Fury, and I'm sure we're going to get at least something more, and just from the beginning, that made things feel really connected, and I loved that. And then the mid-season finale, learning that we got the Ninja Steel powers and the 2 Dino other powers from them, was really cool, and I thought that was really nice to sort of explain things that left questions before. Like, yeah, they could have explained it in their own shows, but it's cool we're getting that now, and it's a cool mythology expansion. I like the general setup for the Dino Fury story, and I think they do a really good job with that. And again, even if they end up disappointing me, I'll always like that, because even in the other seasons I don't like so much, I always like things that they add to the lore, and this has been a significant thing they've added to it that's honestly been one of my favorite things. And I like how they've been explaining it too, and it doesn't feel like they're treating you too much like an idiot with it, which is a bonus. Speaking of, I also think there's been a decent serialized through line. Like, it hasn't been completely a serialized show, but it feels like within each episode there's some sort of progress made, or at least mention of something they're doing. It doesn't feel like we're just immediately devolving into filler where they don't mention any of the other plots going on for a really long time. It feels like there's always a sense of progress, kind of like those episodes from Beast Morphers Season 2 second half, when we came back from the Evox snare through the team up. You know, as mixed thoughts as I had on certain parts of that, I appreciated the fact that there was like a through line that felt like I was watching a continuous story, and I think that's happened so far in Beast Morphers. Like, there has been some filler episodes in it, but usually there is something mentioned or going on about what they're doing, whether it's looking for a Zord or something going on with Void Knight, that makes it feel like you're rewarded for watching all the episodes in a row. Another thing has been the improved stunts. That was another thing we got word of. We got word of like the new composer, which I didn't think was going to end up being that great, which it did, and the same thing happened with the stunts. We got word of we're going to have a new coordinator that was going to be working from the Disney era. I wasn't sure if it was going to make too huge of a difference, but I think that the stunts and the fights have been noticeably better, especially the fight in Green and Black's debut was one of the best fights in years, and I would even say it was the best action sequence we've gotten in the last 10 years since they brought it back from Samurai. It felt very Disney era, which I really like. I like that sort of acrobatic, more powerful feel. And they had some unique parts too. Like I remember Green spinning around the sword on the spear. Like I love stuff like that. So the stunts have also been a noticeable improvement this season. I also have to say, thus far, I think the humor has been much more balanced. I know there's people that aren't a fan of Jane and Jayborg, and they're not my favorites either, but this is something else I've mentioned in past episode reviews. I think what's working so far is even though they do have a little bit of the same shtick, it doesn't seem that they're burdening the entire humorous bone of the show on their shoulders. And like the other seasons have had some funny lines and stuff like from characters of Steel and whatnot, but for the most part, characters like Ben and Betty and Victor Monty were where they got 90% of their humor, and not only that, but it was only one style of humor. But in this series, so far, Ben and Betty haven't been shouldering all the humor. They typically sort of stick to that style of humor, but the show has branched out into other types of humor and funny dialogue and exchanges between the Rangers that I think is great. It makes it feel more balanced, so it doesn't feel like you only have these one comedic characters, and it also has us using different types of humor except for Pie to the Face, which is great because different people are going to like different types of humor, and having more than one type of humor is going to appeal to more people, and I've really felt that's worked this year. There's been some legitimate funny lines and interactions that I've laughed at, like Zato's sort of fish out of water stuff I think has been done funny, like when he's like, oh Amelia, you weren't supposed to hear that, when he told a secret by mistake, or even his awkward dancing, or not understanding Salty. Some people didn't like the okay boomer stuff, but I kind of thought that was funny. I mean, sure, it might not age well in the future, but I've said this before, I would rather look back on this show and be like, okay, this dialogue only fits in this year, rather than look back on this show and be like, why is this show from 2020 acting like it's from 1993? Because that's what the last 10 years have felt like. It felt like it was out of time, like we were making a show for the target audience from the 90s. At least that makes it feel more like it comes from this year. Kind of like when you hear some of the dialogue in the Disney seasons. That's more at home in the early 2000s, but it feels more right than having dialogue from 1993 every single year. Along with that, along with the more balanced humor, I think generally it hasn't been perfect. There's still been some stiff moments and some Neo Sabanti feeling stuff, but I think things feel a little bit looser and the dialogue feels a little more natural. Some of the interactions feel a little more natural. There's still some goody-goody stuff, but it's not 100% bad yet. It could totally, like I said, disappoint me in the future and devolve back to that, but thus far I think there has been some improvements that we're heading in the right direction in that department. And speaking of that, I also think that they've been less over your head or hitting you over the head with the moral lessons. There's definitely still been some stuff in there, but the only one I can think of from these 8 episodes that had a more on-the-nose message was the episode about Izzy's running thing, and I think that was the only one that had a more direct one, but all the other ones have been a little bit more subtle. Like, there will be a lesson at the end, but it's more integrated into the actual plot, rather than feeling like teaching this lesson is the priority, and it's doing that thing where it's like, don't bully, don't bully. It's now more like, hey, don't bully. It's a little more subtle. It's a little more subtle. Like, I think most notably, I think it was, I don't remember if it was the 2nd or 3rd episode, but the episode description made it sound like it was going to be your classic PR, you can never pull together as one and revenge us episode. But it actually was a lot more subtle message about teamwork, and I think they've done a good job with that so far, and that's something I definitely like to see them continue, because not only does it make it more enjoyable, but I think you're more successful at teaching lessons and all kinds of stuff like that when you subtly integrate it to where you don't know you're learning something, instead of being beaten over the head and being told what to think, and I think that's more successful. So overall, I think Dino Fury has shown some marked improvements. I think Beast Morphers did too, but they were smaller, but I think this one is another step in the right direction, and I've been enjoying it a lot more than I thought. Things feel more natural, the stunts feel awesome, the music is great, the lore stuff is awesome. Like I said, I'm just trying to enjoy this moment where I've been looking forward to it each week, and I'm legitimately enjoying more of the lore and story we have in store for us, and I like how much there is to theorize about too. I mean, stuff with Void Knight and the villains has been great. There's been some great mystery and build up there. I'm looking forward to seeing more of that. So that is what I think Dino Fury has been getting right so far. I want to know what you guys think about Dino Fury so far. Do you enjoy it so far? What do you think they're getting right so far? What do you think could still be improved as we head more into the rest of the series? Let me know in the comments as always. Until next time, like, comment, subscribe, and climb steps and ring that bell so you can see my videos. Dawson Ryder, signing out.